Everybody, welcome live to the Jim Master Show, live entertainment lifestyle celebrity talk show series of very special guests coming to us from the Venice Beach area in Los Angeles, California. Bradley Stryker is here. He's a fantastic actor, director, writer, producer, lots more. We're going to talk about a lot of projects he's working on. However, he is right now starring in Sheltering Season. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. It is a new thriller that's coming out, but you guys watching from all around the world, we welcome you. You may remember he was also Trey in the OC, Supernatural, Brotherhood. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of great movies and series and all kinds of cool stuff. And he's coming to us again from the West Coast of the United States. I'm your host, Jim Masters. We're here in the New York area in the United States. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to have a good time with Bradley Stryker. He's also got his own film company, too. We're going to talk about that. Stryker Force Films, which I think is a really cool name. And he and I were just talking about some of the travels we've been doing. He spends a lot of time up in Vancouver. There's a lot of film production. Remember, I think a couple of nights ago, we had Lisa Chandler on, the wonderful actress who is in Vancouver. And that was a great conversation, too, because she talked about what's going on in Vancouver as it continues to grow and just expand. And the film industry knows that, and the TV industry. So a lot of action happens up in Vancouver, Canada. But a lot of action is going to happen right now as we welcome Bradley to the show. Let me tell you just a little bit about some of the cool things that he's doing. It's been an exciting year for the acclaimed, multi-talented writer, director, and actor with over 50 awards to his name and an additional 33 nominations. He continues to gain industry accolades for his compelling performance in the thriller Sheltering Season. Yeah, that's going to be, if you have not had an opportunity, we'll tell you how you can see all the cool things and, learn more about him. It's going to be really cool. We look forward to the conversation. It's a poignant exploration of mental health issues, which is really terrific. He plays, this is really cool. This follows Lily, Caitlin Stryker, of course, who happens to be his wife in this, which I think is awesome. Finds herself isolated in her remote home with her half-brother, who would be Bradley, who is seeking forgiveness for the darkest moment in their family history. Bradley continues to make waves across the entertainment industry as well, with a number of recent projects showcasing his versatility in a range of roles in feature films and television series. And he recently wrapped filming for The Order, featuring A-list stars like Jude Law and Nicholas Hoult, and a true story about notorious white supremacist group. And this, of course, is really incredible because Bradley really embodies Sam Stinson in the film, a survivalist and ex-military expert. Elsewhere in the nonfiction film projects, Bradley has played the captivating character of Sheriff Wilkins in Devil in Ohio. Do you remember that one too? Have you had a chance to see that one? There it is there. Yes, there he is. He is the sheriff in that one as well. And as I mentioned, Trey and the OC and Supernatural and the Brotherhood and lots of other incredible shows. Here's some more great shots that we dug up. Bruce Almighty, Jim Carrey, all kinds of cool stuff. Let's welcome him to the show as we welcome all of you watching around the world. We're going to talk about some cool projects he's working on, his writing and directing, as much as we talk about the acting as well, coming to us from Venice Beach. Now, when you see him, it does look like he's in a cabin, like up in Washington State. He is at the beach, aren't you? It looks like you're at a ski lodge, but he's from Seattle, Washington. That is his hometown, but he's in Venice right now. What's it like in Venice right now? Is it nice?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because LA probably as a whole is actually hot, but when you're by the beach, it's more temperate. So it's kind of, I'm dressed like this, not just to be dressed like this. This is comfortable outside.
It's comfortable, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like we were saying, you're from Seattle, and wherever you go, Seattle comes with you. Absolutely.
I'm 100% Pacific Northwest boy through and through. I was born in Oregon, raised in Seattle, and then I spent a lot of time in Vancouver where I actually met my wife, which is just another part of the Pacific Northwest. So
that's right.
I shake it.
And she's in this thriller with you as well, as I mentioned, right?
Yeah, well, so there's a story behind Sheltering Season. So it's actually a long story. I'm gonna give you the abbreviated version. But like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
COVID started, everybody, of course, is locked inside their homes doing the thing, and my motor moves pretty fast, and I got a lot of energy. So I looked at my wife and I go, I don't know how I'm gonna stay in one place and not go outside. And it's just too much. I said, I think I should write a movie. We should make a movie. And of course, she was like, "Oh God, here we go again." Because I've written a lot of movies, but when I say I want to make it, it usually means that I'm going to back the truck up to our bank account.
Right, right.
You know, and so I wrote it, and then I had a friend who was concurrently at the same time writing adapting a story for John Irving, the author, to turn into a TV show. And long story short, I read her script, gave her notes, and then she said, "What do you have for me?" And I said, "Well, I only have a first draft on this new script I'm writing. I wrote it specifically for COVID, so it had to be compartmentalized. Very few people, very limited on touching, and all these sorts of other rules you had to play by during COVID." I shared it with her. She loved it. She goes, I said, "How did you think of this?" And I said, "Well, it's the only way you can make a movie anymore." And
Yeah, right, right.
literally 2 months later, we went to camera. It just happened real fast. And
how did you come up with the topic? I mean, the topic is so perfect because it's in the conversation. It's everybody's talking about it, and you're bringing it to light in this dramatic way. How did you come up with the topic, or was it something that you had been toying with for a long time, Bradley, and then you wanted to, film it and get
I
it
think
together?
from the idea springing into my head, which was April of COVID year, to when it actually was filmed, which is July, like it sprung into my head in April, and I was like, wait a minute, because we were hearing all the things about militia, and obviously the world was shut down, and there was like these ideas of like prisons being overfull and people getting released a little bit early or prematurely. So I just took all of the current topics and threw them all into a movie, and then had to come up with a way to keep everybody separate. And so one of the sort of through lines of the movie is this Zoom happy hour phone call that's happening, which just kind of threads on. It allows all these people to be together without actually being in the same room, because, as you know, we couldn't have people in the same room. So it was an interesting challenge for sure. And it also was the beginning of me going, how do you make a movie anymore if people can't be together? And I
Yeah.
found a way. And
What was it like? How were you able to pull it off?
it was difficult. It was, well, really what happened is when the producer came on, her name's Kalina Kiff. Kalina's won a BAFTA for Best Picture in Scotland already. So there's no reason for her to do a small independent film. She wanted to do it because we were good friends. And her life partner happens to be a writer director, a man named Adam Kane, who I had done a TV show, Damnation, with years before. And Adam started in the business as a cinematographer, as a DP.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do one more movie. And so when we put the thing together, nobody was working.
Right.
No one. And she brought on another producer, Amanda Verhagen, who happened to have made the first movie of the week in Canada. So when she submitted the paperwork for the COVID protocol, she already had gotten it approved.
Wow,
So
really?
oh, yeah, you guys can go make the movie.
Yeah, go make the movie.
I just called up all my buddies and all my friends, and I said, listen, this is the only time I can get all these talented people to come and do a small movie like this, because, 2 weeks after we finished this movie, half of the cast was out doing their TV shows again. So perfect timing. And also just being, really it's about sort of like, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I've been screenwriting now for 15 years, but like I write incessantly because I love writing. And so when this opportunity of time and this weird thing happening in our world, for me to take the idea and turn it into a script we could shoot in 2.5, 3 months wasn't difficult, solely because, at this point I've written 30 movies. So
30? I didn't even realize that. 30? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I don't, this is my point. I don't really do anything halfway. So
right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I have the idea of me sitting around during COVID and staring at the walls or watching television.
No, you had to, hey, yeah. Well, I started this series during that period too. And like you, working in the industry, and then started this and just, wanted to stay connected and keep creative and write, and just, it's fancy. You finished your movie and we're doing this show.
So the weirdest part about Sheltering Season was when we shot it, directing it. So obviously I wrote it, and then I was directing it, and then I was acting in it. And when I was directing solely, standing behind the camera, the weirdest part was it was my first experience with everybody in masks. And the thing you don't know when everyone's wearing masks is it was really hard to get a gauge on how anyone was doing. And as a director, one of my things is to make sure that it's work, so it's going to be work, but to also check in and make sure everybody's doing all right. And if they aren't, let's figure out how to make it better. And I couldn't check in with anybody and really get much information because half their face was covered. And it was just a new time and it was a new thing. And it was very difficult in that regard to kind of read other human beings and make sure that, we were keeping the train on the tracks and everything was going well. That was probably the biggest challenge of the movie, really.
You know who found that very difficult as well? People that the hearing impaired community couldn't, they read the lips, and it was tough not being able to do that because of the mask that we had on, which we needed. But still, there's a lot of it was really incredible. The whole thing itself is like a movie, isn't it?
Oh, you mean the time in our lives?
Just the time. Who could have scripted anything? I don't even know if, well, maybe there's a few Twilight Zones that are similar that Rod Serling, the brilliant Rod Serling, loved the Twilight Zone, thought about, I think some of his material was more about how people react to things like that, how they handle it, how they treat each other. When the chips are down, do they all get together, or does everybody think that there's a Martian on Elm Street type of thing, which a lot of people did do. Real testament to how people react during a crisis. I've always looked at it like when the chips are down, when the ship is sinking, grab a bucket and let's help each other keep the ship upright. Let's come together, not go apart. I think it's so important because we all need each other. We all have a reason for being here, and coming together and strength in numbers to get over and through stuff is so important, right?
It's funny. My wife said something to me during the beginning of COVID. There's a whole nother thread to this, which is that my mother passed away 2 months before COVID happened.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
So it made the whole thing worse for me.
Oh, sure.
So, part of what this movie was for me, just from an acting perspective, was sort of a meditation on grief, is what I would say. My character goes through a lot of emotional things that I was going through at that time in my life. So I wrote it kind of as a mirror to that, which was made sense. But my wife said this thing. She goes, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And I was like, interesting. And so again,
she's got some good ideas.
She's a smart woman, trust me. And then again, we have the strikes that just happened. So this has been a very weird year for people. My wife and I are both actors and filmmakers, and we basically have coming off of almost a year of being shut down. I mean, I was able to fit in 4 movies, thank God, knock on wood. But at the same time, for most people, there wasn't a lot going on, and so it was another time in which I looked at her and I go, okay, what are we doing? Because the one thing we're not doing is sitting around and waiting. And I had all these ideas of other things I could try, but ultimately what I ended up just doing was writing a couple movies, and I directed a short film with some buddies of mine, and sort of furthering some relationships for making other films that aren't necessarily ones I wrote, which is kind of the next chapter for me. But it was the same sort of impetus as it was for this movie, which was, there's time and energy that we all have right now in sitting in front of us, and you're either going to let it go to waste or you're going to find a way to use it. And I found it really not only constructive but inspiring when I called the people about, will you want to come help out with this movie? Not only were they saying yes, they were excited to do something. So it was providing a service for a lot of people I care about, which also was really great too, because people got to come and exercise their craft or their art again, whatever that may be, even down to the set designer,
That's cool, huh?
It was a good time, and also a good lesson for me. I'm 46 and I'm still learning every day. And this was another time when you kind of go, wow, okay, what? And for me during COVID, one of the things for me was it's about people. I came down to I need people and relationships. I'm not somebody who can exist. The world for some people shut down and they were like, I don't have to do anything.
They liked it. Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Not me. I was like, no, I miss humans.
You're very communal. You're like me. Yeah. That conversation, the contact, is important, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And I can see why you would do this. I mean, what a wonderful outlet for a time when there was no outlet to communicate.
Right.
It had to be a really, really sort of nice touchstone for you. Also, like, look at what happened with podcasts. I don't think that's on accident. We
Exactly
all
right.
needed
Yeah.
it, and it was another way for us to get this sort of feeling of community again.
How did you get started in this industry early on growing up in Seattle, Washington? Was there folks in the family involved in it, or were you acting in plays in school? What was it for you?
No, not at all. I was a sports guy. I grew up playing all the sports. Um,
What were your specialties? What sports did you like?
basketball, football.
Basketball.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed basketball and football. What happened with me was I was in college. So I went to 6 different colleges, 6 different universities, 6 colleges, because I was paying for my own school. I decided I wanted to do a college tour. So I
Wow.
started at Washington State University, did 6 months there, and said, I love you guys. I have a bunch of good buddies. I got to go. Went back to community college in Seattle for 6 months. And then I moved to Santa Barbara, and then from there moved to San Diego. And in the course of the whole thing, did 6 schools. And between junior and senior year of college, during junior year of college, I worked at a place called Abercrombie and Fitch, which I'm sure a lot of people know. There's a lot of stories about that place. And I ended up being
Were you modeling for them, or were you actually working
I
there?
worked for them and got asked to model for them, and then after I did that in South Carolina, then was asked to go to New York and do the modeling thing for the summer between junior and senior year. My best friend from Seattle happened to be going there to work in finance for the summer. No shocker here. He's now doing very well financially, and here I am. I think I took the wrong road. The model apartment didn't work out.
Just have that cool hat that you have.
That's right. And he's at work right now, really busy. But so I went out and do the modeling thing, and the modeling thing didn't really stick too much for me. I did find a way to make some money at it because I found a way. There's a lot of things, lifestyle modeling, and more stuff in San Diego doing surfer sort of stuff. But I took a couple acting classes in New York, and it's actually a funny story. The first acting class I ever took was the most eccentric. Like, the class was literally about like turning into rocks and jelly and then a tree, like stuff that I now, 25 years into being an actor, have done a million times.
Yeah. It's like a philosophy course. Yeah.
Yeah. Not for your first class. I was like, what is this craziness? But I loved it. So then when I went back to San Diego State, where I ended up graduating from, actually, I jumped the story. So I called my mom in New York, and I remember I called her from a payphone, and I said, Mom, I've decided to stay in New York. She goes, oh, that's interesting. And I said, yeah, I really love it here. I found something else I really enjoy. I think I want to take a shot at this acting thing. She goes, oh,
And
okay.
he likes the pizza.
I love the pizza. And she sends me the next day she calls me and says, I just want to let you know, I looked over your college loans, and this is how much money you're going to owe. Don't worry. You have 6 months before you start paying. I just want to make sure you had all the information. I go, no problem. Thanks, Mom. Hung up the phone, and then the next day decided I was going back to college because I couldn't justify having spent that much money for no piece of paper, the diploma, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Mom was very smart.
And what were you studying? School?
Well, I was studying kinesiology, exercise and nutrition, and I ended up using it when I graduated. But I ended up going back to school, and I had a year and a half of college left, as you can imagine, with 6 schools. It was in my technically junior/senior year. So I petitioned the school because I wanted to do a year and a half worth of studies in 1 year. And I had to petition the school and sit down and talk with the dean. The dean told me it wasn't possible. And I told him it had to be possible because I need to be done with college. I was done with it mentally. And he said, fine, I'll let you do it, but you're going to fail. And I was like, okay, good. Thank you. Didn't fail. Best grades I've ever gotten, actually. And I finished it. But one of the things that happened is I went into a class that I had one elective for a freshman year that I had never done. So I went into whatever I had signed up for, and it was the class time had changed, which didn't work for me because I was full-time school and 30 hours a week at a restaurant at nights. And so I happened to be standing across from the theater department when I found out the class was changed. And I was like, I could take a drama class. Walked into a freshman theater class, and that was the place where I got hooked, where I got really hooked, because it was the first time we explored all sorts of things. It was the first time I ever kind of sort of connected what was going on emotionally with me, Bradley, and being an actor. And
what was going on? What were you experiencing at that time?
I mean, nothing unlike anyone else, 21, doesn't have any idea how the world works, feeling a little bit lost, feeling like, how do I find my place in this world sort
How
of
do I make my
thing.
mark? And yeah.
And I think just, childhood traumas and all the other things that we all have gone through had been there. And it's a funny story. Like I got in a bit of trouble when I was a young guy, and I once got court appointed counseling because I sat in this diversion court or whatever. I did something as a kid, and they're like, "What did you do wrong?" I go, "Nothing. I don't think I did anything wrong." They're like, "You need to talk to someone." I was like, "I don't need to talk to anyone." And I was like maybe 14, and I went to a counselor for 10 hours, and all I did was sit and cry for 10 hours. It was a very interesting
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's interesting. So, I think I have a theory on this at a much bigger scale, but I think we all have all this stuff going on. And a big majority of the world, especially men, are taught that it's not okay to access it. It's not okay to express yourself. Emotion is for sissies or whatever the case may be. So what they end up doing is they end up filling this backpack over the course of their entire lives with all of that stuff. And it just weighs them down over time. In a million different ways. That's why I, in my brain, have manufactured that there's some people that get old like this, and there's some people that get old like this.
Right.
And I believe that life does that to some of us. And what I found is that a lot of my early training in acting, especially I did 4.5 years of Meisner, was essentially therapy. Me going through my stuff, dealing with relationships with mom and dad and sister and loved ones, and you name it.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I unpacked it all. And that's what happened in that freshman class. I did a monologue for my final, and unbeknownst to me, I have no idea why it happened. I just started sobbing in the middle of the monologue.
Yeah, something triggered. Yeah,
and I saw the way it affected my classmates and the teacher, and I was like, and plus the way it felt after I got through it, and I was like, oh, I think this is for me.
Were they frightened by it, confused by it, or did they embrace that you were emoting in front of them?
Because it was authentic and real, they couldn't help but have an emotional reaction to it. So there was a lot of people that had, quote unquote, joined me on the ride. That's one of the tricky things about being an actor. I like that there's some people who are like, it's a trick. There's tricks involved or whatever. I'm very much not a trick guy. If you see me going through something on screen, whether it be anger, sadness, I'm going through that because I've also not lived a boring life. And so it's funny for me to say that because I've been in acting classes with some kids. And so, they come from privilege. Their lives have been pretty one note. And when somebody's like, what about accessing this? They're like, oh, what are you talking about? I
live it. Yeah.
I've got some stuff. And so using the stuff for me,
you can pull from it.
It also is a release. And so, like, I don't view it as work. Like, if especially now that I'm older and, things like my mom passing and things have happened in life, I coach a lot of actors, and I said to one of my younger actors, I said, someday this is going to be really easy for you and you're going to wish it wasn't. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, just trust me. Because there's certain things I can access like that I wish I could. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's it's an interesting way to go about it. And I think a fantastic way because it leads to the authenticity of your work. So when people see you in all these incredible things that I mentioned in that introduction, I mean, the OC, Smallville, Brotherhood, all these things, and now this, they know that what they're getting is essences of who you are through these characters. Have you ever, I've asked this of a few people, not just on this show, but in some of my professional work. Have you ever had a situation where you've taken on a role? And I've heard this with a lot of people mentioning sometimes they get into a situation where the role becomes either they play the role for a long time and it becomes ingrained in them, or there's just something about the character that they're relating to. And it could be a character that's really intense. It's an intense personality, and they have trouble sometimes separating themselves from it or pulling away from it or not being it when the light isn't on them. How do you work through all of that too, considering it's sort of like therapy for you as well?
It's interesting because, my wife has a different take on it. I think when I'm playing certain characters, she'll be like, oh, we're going to live in this for how long? So, because my answer would be that I don't live in it, that I do when I'm prepping and when I'm doing the work, it becomes that becomes that. But when I step away and come back home and I'm spending time with my 8-year-old son, that it's not still present. I think she might say that some of it is from time to time. But the other thing is that I play a lot of very dark characters, and I played serial killers a few times. In Sheltering Season, I played a guy dealing with some mental issues, mental stability, and I don't think that I can live there and also be have a happy marriage and be a good father. But I do think that I've spent so much time learning how to become an actor and learning how to refine the craft of acting that when I get in deep.
Yeah.
I just played a couple weeks ago, played a boxing trainer with Parkinson's, and I found it to be very, very exhausting.
Did you study folks who are going through it? Did you, do tons of research? And I would imagine
like interviewed people. And one of the things I learned right away that particular role presented for me was it was going to be right and wrong no matter what I did. Because if you study Parkinson's, nobody's the same. There's certain things that are the same, but in general, my uncle does this, my aunt does this. They're all different. So some people are going to watch and be like, I don't believe that's not real. Some people are like, oh my God, that's my uncle.
Yeah.
And so I found it to be very risky because it was a little bit of damned if I do, damned if I don't on this one. Somebody's going to love it. Somebody's going to hate it. And that's fine. I've been doing it for 25 years. I'm not really that much invested in if people think I'm good or not, because I know what I'm doing. It's just that I do my preparation, take a certain take on it. But the thing that I think allows me to get away from the dangerous link of never letting it go is that before I ever step in front of a camera, I let all of my research and everything go, and I just see what happens. You could view it in the surrender, if you will, the fuck it state, if you will.
Was that something you were always able to do, or that take time and comfortability and believing in yourself that then allowed you to say, you know what, I can actually let go and let's just see what happens from it? Did that take time? Is that training, or how did that work for you?
It is the hardest thing to do by far. So there's a trap for young actors, which is that they go, well, I heard Sir Anthony Hopkins say he reads the script 20 times, I believe, or 50 times is what his quote is. And they've never studied acting. And they go, I'm just going to do that. I'm like, okay, so you're just going to do that and just hope for the best. Whereas, Mr. Anthony Hopkins has studied and been an actor for 60 years and he's worked so hard to get to that point.
Where Jackie Gleason would come on The Honeymooners and didn't even want to rehearse. Whatever happened.
100%. So what happens is you do all of the work like I have, or a lot of other people have, that puts you in a place where when you do say, whatever, let's see what happens, all of that work is still with you. You just don't have to mentally hold on to it. Right. When I was younger, I had to mentally hold on to everything all the time.
Yeah.
And the reason being that I wasn't advanced enough to trust that I could do it otherwise. Now, this many years later, that's not a worry of mine. Now it's more about, let's just see what happens. Because the thing that's most exciting for me as an actor is when I find myself in a situation in the middle of a scene that I've already kind of prepared, and it's doing something to me and just in general that it was not planned, that's totally different. And that to me is quite exciting. So now I'm in the middle of all this discovery, and I'm like, wow, this is for me. And also when if you don't do that after time, the job becomes really boring. If you're paying by numbers.
Right. Yeah. Like a factory assembly line wrote. Yeah. And then the challenge isn't there. I always tell everybody when they mention, oh my God, I got butterflies in my stomach, and it could be something they've been doing for years. I said, yeah, even I get it. Stuff I've done for years, I will still sometimes get that little curdle in the stomach, and people get surprised when you tell them that if you've been doing something for years. And I tell people when they have it, it's not a bad thing. It means you're still passionate. You care. You really want to do well. You want to nail it. That means your vested interest is in that, whatever it is. That's why you care enough to have a stomach that's flipping upside down. So embrace the quote butterflies, because they're a good sign that you're still passionate about it. Once those butterflies fly out and you don't get that feeling anymore, move on to something else because you've lost interest and passion, right?
Well, it's also why so many actors have such a hard time auditioning, because they care so much and they're going into a situation they care so much about. Now, this is in the past now when you used to go into an actual room, but they care so much that it would inhibit their ability to do the work. It would inhibit their ability to fully surrender to the situation. And that's why you'll hear very famous actors say, I'm a terrible auditioner. And I've heard all these stories about certain people that'll go into an audition or, a reading because they're already famous. And they'll be like, I'm not even going to read for you. I just want you to know that I'm here. This is my view on the character, and I'm going to do a great job for you if you decide to hire me. But there's no point in me auditioning for you. It's just going to be bad. And it's like, that's a very interesting, obviously.
Have you ever done that?
No, well, I'm not in a place where that would be possible. But also, I think for me, I actually like that period because it's like, here's my take. And when they hire you, you go, good, I already know what I'm doing.
Right.
The few times that I've just gotten straight offers, I'll show up a little bit like, what are we doing?
What's this? Yeah, what's happening? Yeah.
I had something that happened recently. It was like last spring where I filmed an audition. And then they said, okay, we love Bradley, but we'd like him to see him do it this way, totally differently. Great. It was a serial killer. So I played him as a serial killer who has a big turn in the scene. And then the second time they said, can you just play it as like a dad? I said, absolutely. Did that scene. Great. 2 days later, he got the job. Great. Showed up to set. And I'm working with them. So the first day on set, I'm actually just doing these things where I'm driving and then I would get out of the car and walk, and the lead of the movie would follow me. So my first day of like real scenes, I said to the director, she goes, this is the scene. I go, great. So now we need to talk about who I am. She goes, what do you mean? And I said, oh, I have 2 different characters completely prepared for this movie because nobody told me which one I'm playing. She goes, what are you talking about? And I was like, I had filmed 2 different things. This is a different sort of scenario. Obviously, it's more work than not, And she goes, oh, I've only seen one. I said, oh, that's funny. Which one did you see? And she told me one with the big turn. I go, great. That's the guy I'm playing. And I was like, then we need to rewrite this scene. She goes, what? And I said, because it doesn't work for this scene. And if it was the other guy, we would need to rewrite it in another direction. This particular scene just didn't work either way. I found it so interesting. But my point being, when you don't know, so this was 2 different versions, and then when you show up with no version is one of the times when you kind of go, well, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I supposed to do here? Like, what are we doing? And that's the hardest first day on set, if you will. But that's also the one time when you do question yourself, and maybe you do have the butterflies again because you're falling without a parachute. You're like, I don't know. And then, of course, after the first take or 2, maybe the first rehearsal, the parachute will be firmly intact, and then you can do your job. So, yeah.
That's so true. When you look back, I mean, because you've been doing this for a while, like you said, what was that first opportunity that opened the door for you? What was that first thing that happened that because that happened, and it could have been a series of things. Some people say, well, it was actually more than one, Jim. It wasn't just one big thing. And then sometimes they'll say, what was the big break and all that kind of stuff. And I've had people who've been doing it for like 50 years say, Jim, I'm still waiting for that, the big break. Everything is new. But for you, when you look at it with all the work and the blood, sweat, and tears and everything you've done, what was something pivotal early on that really got things rolling for you?
That's easy for me. And it's not a job. It's a way of looking at the business and a way of working. So I moved to Hollywood when I was 21. And it was a personal trainer. That's how I used my kinesiology degree. Started really studying acting full time. And it only took me about 3 or 4 years to start making a really good living doing commercials. Did that back in the day when I paid a lot of money, bought my first house, did all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
But still really pursuing and studying, learning how to become an actor. One of the things I discovered, and I don't know how much time you spent in Los Angeles, but you spend a lot of time in New York. It's the same thing on some level.
Yeah.
Los Angeles is full of gorgeous people. And in the acting business, it is full of extraordinarily gorgeous people. Actually, the guy, James Fry, who wrote A Million Little Pieces, wrote a second.
Which, of course, you and I are in that category, so we don't have a problem.
We don't even recognize it, of course.
That's
he wrote a second book called My Best Friend Leonard, which is where after his first book was a hit and he moved to Los Angeles. He goes, and he had this quote in the book. He goes like, Los Angeles is the strangest city to me because the three best looking people from every high school in America moved here. I thought, what a great way to put it. The three best looking people, not the four.
Oh, the ones from all over.
But so my point being is that I learned really early on that my only path to a career and like lasting success was to be better than everyone. So what that put me into was work ethic. And I'm 25 years in and I still go every Tuesday to my acting group and we grind and we work on stuff and we fail and we learn. I know people that have been acting for 2 years and think they're done with classes because they're geniuses.
Right.
I'm not saying they're right or wrong. What I am saying is it instilled in me a work ethic that stays with me today, which is that for me to ultimately succeed in this business, it's not going to be about being the most handsome man in the room. It's going to be about finding a way that they can't say no to Bradley Stryker. Finding a way that they go, wow, this guy is just so good. He might not be exactly what we had in mind. I did a movie this summer where they told me they thought I was a bit too edgy for the part, but they watched the audition and there was just something going on that they knew they needed to have in their movie. And then there you go. And so that was my big wake up call. Sort of, that's my secret to the business.
Yeah, right.
And I've had many jobs that have helped me along the way. One of the biggest jobs I ever got, I was living in New York. I love this story. I was flying back to Vancouver to tell my Vancouver agent, who I'm very close with, that I was going to be done with the business. I needed to be done. It wore me down too much. I needed to be done. And I landed in Seattle. My phone dings. It's her telling me that I've just been put on hold for a TV show. And I was like, for a regular role on a TV show. And I called her and I go, I don't know which audition was this. I don't even remember. She goes, you did an audition for this. And I was like, well, I don't understand. Why are they just putting me on hold? She goes, I don't know. So I just chalked it up as to something that was happening. No big deal. And I was finished, of course, then flew from Seattle to Vancouver. And then I was going to go in her office the next day and have a talk with her that she didn't know was coming. So instead of that talk actually happening, I was at the coffee shop at 7 a.m. writing like every morning. And at 7:30, she called me and she goes, you didn't get the part. And I was like, oh, okay. And she goes, you got a different part. And I was like, what? In the show? She goes, yeah, you start work next week. So I was a little bit floored because then I was going to be in Vancouver for a week and a half. Actually, it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And then I was flying to Halifax to do a show called The Lizzie Borden Chronicles.
Oh, yeah. Right.
With, Christina Ricci and Hauser.
Yeah.
And I didn't even audition for the show. And I was like, this is crazy to me. And then when I was there, I subsequently booked 2 guest stars when I was in Vancouver and did them back to back before I went. And I was like, this is really weird for a guy that was done with this business. Now all of a sudden, this is pretty darn good.
Happens, right? Exactly.
Yeah, there was an interesting.
Sometimes when you don't chase it, it comes. Right.
It's part of the trick in this business too. Is you have to build a happy life
outside of it.
Yeah, because I tried to give everything to the business and it didn't want me when I did that. Then I said, I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to take care of myself first.
Yes.
And then they come screaming for you. And they're like, where do you think you're going?
Right. Yeah, the less they have of you, the more they want of you. As strange as that is, you would think by being the last one at the party and the first one and just always being there and omnipresent, it would be like, oh my God, yeah, the phone's always ringing. But the less they have of you, the more they want of you. It's a reverse psychology situation, right? When did you realize that was the case, that's how it actually really works?
Everybody tells you that. But when I put it into action, this is a long story, which I'll make short, is that I was in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, kind of had my big awakening as Bradley moment, which was I was working on a TV show. I was unhappy. I was living in like a 36 floor condo in downtown Vancouver. I had a really lovely life and I wasn't happy. And I realized on that 2 months in Southeast Asia that I wasn't happy because I needed more out of myself and out of life. And I decided I wanted to write movies and direct movies ultimately. And I went home and I hired myself as, let's do that as well as be an actor. And the interesting thing that happened is I became so busy outside of acting with writing and directing that acting then became almost a problem. It kept coming back to me, and I was like, I don't have time for this right now. And then it kept coming back more and more. And then of course you end up working a ton because you don't need it anymore. I was being fulfilled by writing and directing. And now, of course, all these acting people want, what do you guys want me for? I'm busy over here doing my thing. But it created the perfect life for me. I remember one of the first jobs I did, I was playing Deadshot on Smallville. And I was in my trailer in pre-production on my second or third short film. And they're like, Bradley, we need you to come on set. I was like, great. Give me 30 seconds. I closed my pre-production because I'm literally on the phone doing all the things because we're filming that weekend. I do a little warm-up that I do, and then I head out and went and did the scene or whatever. And then we wrapped the scene and went right back into my thing, did the thing, that balance proved to be my sort of secret weapon. Having this other thing that I was just as passionate
about. Right.
There is actually a great story when I was working on Lost in Space where we shot the first scene. We were in Drumheller, Alberta, where they shoot all the dinosaur stuff. It looks like Martha, orange clay.
Right.
So I did the first scene. Great. Bradley, we don't need you right now. Are you sure? They go, yeah, we'll come get you later. So then they put me in one of these little cat things and drive me up this muddy hill and throw me in a van and drive me back to my trailer. I'm sitting in my trailer. I was in my trailer for 16 hours. They never needed me again. They didn't get to it. I wrote the entire pilot of a TV show that day because I had been prepping. And when I went back to my trailer, I go, how much time do I have? And they're like, we don't know. It's going to be a while. I said, okay, where's the coffee? And they're like, right over there. I was like, great. Went over, got myself a coffee and just sat down and just pounded this thing out. And I was like, that is what I need. I need that balance. When I was in my 20s, you give me those 16 hours. Oh boy, you don't want to know.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to know how many bad choices I could have made in 16 hours.
Yeah. Where's Bradley?
Yeah, honest to God, where did he go?
Bradley, we need you now finally. Where is he?
Yeah,
he's up the mountain. That is funny. Like I mentioned, you just mentioned Lost in Space. I mean, what was it like being in that?
Fantastic. Just such good people. That's one of those shows that people thought was going to be a good show and ended up being a runaway hit.
Right.
And the people that were on it were just really good people, just good humans. So like, just got to work with people that had no thing.
Yeah, there was nothing. Right. That just enjoyed the craft and enjoyed the camaraderie and wanted to create good product, which is great when you're surrounded with people like that. It makes it so much better, doesn't it?
Oh,
leave the egos at the door kind of thing.
It's the best. And, I've learned it from some pretty amazing people. I mean, even when I was younger, I worked on 3 episodes of the show Stargate Universe, and Robert Carlyle was on it. And just seeing the way that he's just somebody I really respect as an actor, but just seeing the way that he operated and how grounded he kept himself. And, he's working with a lot of younger actors, and he was just very connected to all of them and available to all of them. And, Lost in Space, there was a couple of actors who'd been around for longer. And I think that them showing up with no pretense and showing up with no holier than thou attitude is good for the younger actors to see, because if we learn from the wrong people, then all of a sudden we're out in the world operating. Because being an actor is a tricky thing. I got my first television commercial I ever did. I remember it. It was a Playtex commercial. We were shooting on the beaches of Malibu. There was 3 huge work trucks, and I was a 23-year-old young man, and I'm walking through the parking lot, and I see the work trucks, and I see them unloading them. So I walked up to the work truck, grabbed some gear, and was walking it down. I thought I was going to get fired. Yeah. I got stopped by a crew member like 5 steps in. What are you doing?
Right. You're touching our equipment. You can't touch that. Yeah. I've done that too in TV studios. I'm trying to take the microphone off, or like, no. That's what we do. I'm like, no, I'm here to help. You're struggling. You're on a ladder. That's what we do. Don't touch anything in here. You just And if you're not that kind of person generally, and you want to help carry, I've done, of course, other projects where I will carry stuff if it's me and the camera guy, and that's it. We're going up a mountain. I'm like, let me have that. Let's go. Come on, we got to get up there. But yeah, if you want to help, sometimes it's kind of like, hands off, don't touch that.
What's so interesting to me is that when I started making films, I realized that nobody works harder on a set than the crew. It's just not possible. They put in the hours, the blood, sweat, and tears. Talk about they're sweating, they're exhausted, they're away from their families. And when you show up, they've already been there, unless you're the director, of course. As an actor, when you show up, most of them have already been there. And when you go home, they got 2 hours left.
For hours they've been there. Yeah, the lighting and everything. Yeah.
100%. And so one thing that's kind of gifted me as well is you'll never see me trying to pull a thing, because the trap is that you're treated in a certain way where you think I am up here. But once you recognize that they're doing that because there's certain things other people just need to do to keep their jobs.
To make it
happen.
B,
they need to make sure you're comfortable to stand in front of a camera, look good, and do your job. Great. You learn all those things, you go, that's great. But for not 1 second do I stand there and go, my job's more important than that guy over there putting up that light.
No, not at all.
Putting up the light, we got nothing. And one of the things independent film gifted me was nothing but respect for every single person standing on that set. And they want to go home to their families. So, have a good time, but then abbreviate that before you get into the place of indulgency and start people's weekends.
Right, exactly. And a lot of times, we've been in situations coming up the ranks where sometimes somebody falls ill or somebody doesn't show up or something happens, and you've got to run and help do, in the earlier years when you're able to touch stuff and do things, where you're able to actually help assist. Hey, the guy fell off the chair, or this one didn't show up, or run out there and go do something, make something happen. And, we've all had those experiences. And if they can call upon you to pitch in and keep the train on the track, it makes you more valuable too, but it also adds to that whole team effort. Although I know, and it probably still holds true, they always say, make sure you always are nice to the lighting director, the makeup artist, and the editor. Extra nice to them, because they can make or break you in a minute if you tick them off.
Yeah, it's really funny,
especially lighting can really.
When I watch movies, I hold the director accountable for a lot of things, and my reason for that is that I know as a director I have the ability to make people look really good or really bad. And so if you really look at the movies I've made, generally speaking, the actors they win awards, they get accolades. They're people generally, they might not like my movie, they might not like the story, but they pretty much always like the acting. And the reason for that is that I understand that very, very well. I'm 25 years into doing that. And so one of the things I'm able to do as a actor director is make all my actors look great. I'm never going to let any of them look bad. Right. Whereas I also have to really lean on my DP for some of the technical part of cameras and lighting and all that.
Right.
And I have no problem doing that. I'm continually trying to educate myself more and more on that so that I can be helpful as well. But in general, I think it's our job to know our strengths and to embrace them. And then I think there's other times when you need to really lean on the collaboration aspect of whatever it is you're doing.
Exactly right. Yes.
And I don't operate from a place of a dictatorship ever, because I feel like it's another trap. How could I possibly have as much camera knowledge as my DP? I mean, if I was a DP first, maybe I would, but I wasn't. So I'd have to do a lot of studying to catch up. That's why I think it's ironic a lot of times when you'll get a note from a studio or from whoever it may be about your script by somebody that's never written a script in their life. I mean, I've had some scripts that have won some pretty big contests, and I'll shop them around town, and I'll have a manager or a producer who's like 23 years old. It's someone's assistant. Send me some really bad notes or some, and I'll just sit there and I'll be like, it's so interesting to me how because the notes often will be about the structure of screenwriting or something obscure, and you're like, how do you know so much for somebody that's never studied this? And that's how they keep their job. They keep this strong opinion, right? So, one of the things I've had to learn as an actor or a writer and directing even, you can't take every no. So you have to find a way to take what they said, give them what they want without ruining your product. And the only way to do that efficiently is to really essentially never stop learning and studying, never stop growing. And that's whether it be writing, directing, or acting. It's like that hunger is always there for me. And so that's easy for me to do it. Whereas some people could care less. They just want to play video games. I don't want to play video games. I want to learn more about my chosen, sort of field so that when the end of my life, I can look back and be like, oh, okay, I did my best.
Right. Exactly. Huh? Exactly. Speaking of which, you have been in a lot of incredible things. The Brotherhood, one of them.
That was my first movie ever.
That's what. Yeah. Huh?
I look like a baby in that picture.
See, now there you look like you're at Venice Beach.
I did. We shot that movie in 4 days.
Really? How did this come about? This one.
I auditioned for it, and Dave Dakota, the director, he's done so many of these movies. Very specific genre, sort of homoerotic thrillers. And what was so fun about this movie is he gave tons of us young actors a chance to be the lead in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed up. I remember going, we're going to shoot in 4 days. That's 25 pages a day. And yep, that's right. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of pages in a day, but I guess that's how movies are made. So I showed up.
It's like a soap opera. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Grinded it out and had a great time. Got along great with Dave. Dave and I are still friends today. And I did the movie only to get hired on a TV show like 6 months later from the first time. And we did 6 pages. And I was like, where's the rest of the day? I'm so confused.
I'm ready to go here. Come on, bring it on.
What are we doing? 8 days? This is crazy. So I think it's a sort of trial by fire. It was the best case scenario because I had to do so much homework to study I had to be so prepared just for the dialogue alone.
Yeah. Yeah. You dove right in. Exactly. Right. Huh?
It was a really good time. I made some good friends on that movie. And, Dave is very much sort of for lack of putting it in a better way, he's just a really good sort of guide, and he's a very loving guy who said, listen, you're new to this business. And he's been honest with me about a lot of things just in terms of the business and whatever, and he's just like, you got to take care of yourself. You have to protect yourself.
Right.
Don't ever let this business get under your skin.
Right.
And he gave me a chance to do a couple of my first leads in movies, that and Final Stab. And
right.
I've always been grateful. I know there's a lot of people that were in his movies that have gone a different way with their mindset because, I do legitimate things now or whatever. But, I'm never going to discount the opportunity he gave me. So I can't do that.
Opportunity is an opportunity, right? And it's an opportunity to grow and experience and network and connect and all of that too. Of course, a lot of people know you from the OC. It's Trey. That was a great role. How'd that come about?
Just audition. I did the first season of that show. It was. I mean, that has a bittersweet ending for me, which is, I got replaced, but there's nothing I could do about it. They wouldn't. Right. When they decided they wanted to bring somebody new on, we tried to get me the opportunity to audition against whoever else they wanted to see, and they said that the network wasn't interested. So that's life,
It's part
Fox,
of it, right?
Yeah, Fox had another vision for the character. It wasn't me. It was maybe also coincidentally at a point in my life when I was a younger actor, just dealing with life things anyway. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
For me to step away from that and do some more growing before I stepped more into the limelight a little bit, and also just to take ownership of, I was very much at that time sort of in my James Dean phase, which is a good phase for him, and for the rest of us can be a dangerous phase. A lot of standing out front of the trailer smoking cigarettes and, real serious about all the things. And also wildly insecure. One of the things I've realized is the older I got is that the sort of being malleable in any of the disciplines that I'm talking about is easy to do if you have self-confidence. Being malleable when you're very insecure is very difficult.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's more that guy that when I was doing the OC, I was still pretty deep insecurity about being an actor and my skill set, and so that could have played part in the whole thing too.
Supernatural as well.
Yeah, I did played two characters on that show.
Did you work with Lisa Chandler? She was a guest on our show, and she's in Vancouver, and she did that too.
No, I mean Supernatural did 8
So
trillion
many.
episodes.
Yeah, right.
They did so many episodes that I was a guest star in 2 different seasons, like 5, 6, 7 years apart. It was
Were you
hilarious.
really? Yeah.
That was my first job in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
which is part of the reason I fell in love with that city.
Yeah.
I still have a very big love affair. You know, I married a Canadian. We live half our lives up there. I'm a big fan of that community, Vancouver. I think it's a very special sort of community, and it's an interesting thing because you know the bigger communities, Los Angeles and New York, can be a bit more cutthroat. Not the theater community in New York. That's different. I find that to be a little bit more intimate, but it could just be a little bit more about like it's about me. Whereas if you're in a place like the community of Vancouver, and I would imagine Atlanta's a bit like this too. And from some of the guys I met there, I think it might be. It's a lot easier in a smaller community to celebrate each other's successes because there's enough work to go around, and also if you're working enough, it feels good to celebrate each other's successes. Where I've kind of always viewed Los Angeles to be a little bit more of, oh, good for you, why not me?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm fortunate now to not have that problem, so I don't have to worry about that, if you will. So when I do work in the States, it's great, and when I don't get the job, that's life too. I'm fine. I'm not. I'm going to get another job. That just comes with age, and also like if you can manage to stick it out for 25 years and not quit, not move on, there's magic at the end of that rainbow. I'm not saying it's easy to get here, and I'm not saying it doesn't affect your lifestyle and the things you get to do. But like my wife and I and our son have a very good life, and we travel a ton, and that's choices we make. That's why I'm sitting in Venice Beach, and then I'll be up in Vancouver on Sunday, and I'll be up there
Right.
basically till halfway through January. You know, like it's just choices we made. It's not the easiest life, but it sure is exciting.
Yeah, it is, right? Exactly. And again, you've had an opportunity to dive in and play so many different roles as sheriff in Devil in Ohio,
Yeah,
too.
that was a fun one. That was a really fun one.
What was
You know,
that?
do you
What
know
was
that
that
Devil in
like?
Ohio, the book is based on a true story, right?
That's right.
So when I got this job, the showrunner sent us all this massive amount of research. And then I did my own research. And then I quickly discovered, wow, this guy is the sheriff for a cult. You know,
Yeah.
this
Right.
is insane. This is okay. It's a true story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of the things that struck me out of all that was, oh wow, this guy has a very specific way of dealing with people, and part of the way he deals with people is he thinks he's smarter than everybody else he runs into that's not in the cult because they figured out the secret to life. Whereas what was really going on in the cult was very dark, sort of satanic worshiping stuff. So it was a really interesting. It was a very interesting role to play. I found it to be a big challenge, but I also found it to be a lot of fun. And it was really fun walking into every scene with people who are outside of the cult and looking at them in such a condescending way.
You had the ability to do that, right?
I mean, it's almost required of me, I
Yeah.
think.
Who's gonna mess with the sheriff? You know, I mean, it's come on.
Nobody.
I was gonna say, right? Nobody at all.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. But I just noticed that my power's low. If you want, I got to grab my cord because I brought the wrong
Yeah,
cord.
yeah, sure. Everybody does. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
give me
Here-
1 sec. I'll be right back.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get a chance to see another of our guests' chairs. A lot of our guests, we see the chairs and lots of comments coming in here from all of our viewers. Feel free to post in the JMS Liberty Hall chat room. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. If you're enjoying this episode on our YouTube channel, give us a like, thumbs up, leave a comment for us as well. Leslie Diana is here. Says, great to hear how Bradley got started in the business and his long career as an actor and director. And some great comments coming in from everybody watching around the world. Good to see everybody. All the JMS Lovities watching from around the world. Nice to see all these great folks. Again, feel free to comment, leave a comment on our YouTube channel, subscribe, all the rest. And thank you for that comment there, Merlin in Ontario. we appreciate that as well. Glad you found the show to be that way in the series. So he's plugged in. All right. He's got the juice.
I had my phone charger to plug into my computer.
Everybody, it happens to everybody. You know how many guests over the time we've been doing it where we've seen their chair? So we've got a string of episodes where we've seen the chair where the guests had to get up to get the charger or the Oscar, or the cat jumps on their head and they got to bring it outside. So I said, we're going to do an episode one day where we just show chairs that the guests sat in and have the viewers guess, which guest do you remember sat in that chair? Because there's so many chairs. It's all part of the show now. It's sort of like, here's a cool photo. Right. Look like a good, comfortable swivel chair you're in. Here's a cool shot. What was this one from?
That was from Psych.
Oh, yeah.
Funny enough, now you're gonna have to help me with names.
Yeah.
So this was an episode of Psych I did. God, I missed that hair. I loved having no hair. I mean, now I've got all this hair. The episode of Psych I did with is it Sarah Shahi? And did you watch Shameless?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Get his name. The gentleman that played he played like the next door neighbor. He's gone on to have a wonderful career.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, long story short, they were married at the time, and they were the other guest stars in the episode. We actually had to go whitewater rafting in Whistler, BC, for that job. So it was one of those jobs where you get hired, and you're like, "Well, this is great."
We're going whitewater rafting, right? Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
That is so cool. Look at this shot.
Oh yeah. And where was that?
It's the guy next door.
I think one of my good buddies took that. That might have been Kyle Cassidy that took that photo right there.
And this one was Joshua Hinkson, I think, took this one. It's a cool look too.
He is. He's one of my best buds up in Vancouver. Yeah, it's shooting pictures is such a funny thing. I always shoot with friends because I have enough of them that are photographers, but also just in general, I'm so comfortable with them.
Have you been told? I mean, when you look at the photos, you see, you do have like sort of a leading man look that Hollywood, has always sort of gone towards. Has that been the case? Is that something? I mean, when you look at these shots, I mean, it's sort of Clint Eastwood-ish.
It's funny because I've been married now for a decade and dating longer than that. But so she'll make comments and she'll be like, she'll see somebody in a movie and be like, "Oh, he's my type," and I'm like, what do you think your type is? She goes, "I like men." And I go, "What do you mean by that?" She goes, "I don't like pretty boys. I like people that are a little bit off." And I'm like, "Hey, thanks."
Sort of the rugged, sort of like, sure.
I think everybody has a theory about who I look something like or whatever else. When I was in my,
which is what happens,
right? I had a picture of this. When I was in my 20s, I was out in Hollywood, and this older woman came up to me, and she'd had a few glasses of wine, and she came up to me, and I had blonde hair that was like the spiky hair, but it was bigger. And she comes up to me, and she's like, I just had to tell you, I think you look just like Rod Stewart." I was like 25 years old, and I was like, I wonder if she thinks that's a compliment to a 25-year-old.
And then you broke out a rendition of Maggie May, right?
And that's a true story. Not even 2 weeks later, I'm out again, and this woman comes up to me, same thing. The older woman's had a few cocktails. She grabs me, this one though. She looks like an old rock and roll woman. She grabs me. I'm on the Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. She goes, "You look like a young Bob Dylan." And I was like, again, I'm 25 years old, and I know that is a compliment, but it doesn't feel like one because oh my God, it's so funny.
Have you gotten involved with Lifetime or Hallmark movies? Because I know they shoot a lot of that stuff in Canada as well.
Yeah, I did one. I did a Lifetime movie last spring called How She Caught the Killer, and I was the killer. Sorry if you hadn't seen it. I did that, and I've done a bunch of Hallmark movies. Done a few Lifetime movies, but I've done a bunch of Hallmark movies, and I did run on a TV show they had called Chesapeake Shores. And then I don't know how many of their just like sort of movies I've done. I've done one Christmas one and a few of their mystery ones. I mean, it's something that happens a lot up in Canada.
Yeah, if you get involved in the Christmas ones, you end up becoming
That's
you're
my
in
wife.
there all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my wife. She's done like 20 of those things.
Has she really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Well, there's
fantastic.
another story that's I should tell you about sheltering season, which is funny because when you introduced the movie, she said, "There I am." My wife played Lily, and I played her half brother Brooklyn, right? And she has a husband in the movie. And somebody said to me, "Why didn't you play her husband?" And I was like, "It's an interesting question." One, I wanted to play Brooklyn because he's the one dealing with all of the stuff mentally. But I said Brooklyn and Lily have a really fractured sort of relationship, which is that they really care about each other, but then they have this really dark piece of history that has caused conflict. And I said they really love each other and really hate each other. And I said, I don't know if you know anything about marriage, but that fits a little better. I was like, it's not going to be hard to access how much I love this person and how much I
Perfect
want
casting,
to
right?
oh gosh, you hate
Tell
that
us
stuff.
about, because this is, hot off the presses. Tell us about sheltering season and, where can people see it? And tell us a little bit about the storyline. I mentioned a little bit in the introduction, but this is your baby. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the movie it's playing on Tubi right now in the U.S. and in I think in Canada as well. Um, the concept of the movie is pretty simple. It's about you open with a husband and wife, Lily and her husband Rex, I believe his name was, and they have conflict in their marriage, and it happens to be the 2-year anniversary of their young 5-year-old son's passing. So she's getting on a Zoom call with all of their best friends while the husband is away at the family's cabin tending to their son's grave. And basically, the friends on the Zoom are trying to make her feel better. And there's a knock on the door. And about 8 minutes into the movie, and the knock on the door is her half brother, who is responsible for the death of her child. And the half brother shows up seeking forgiveness. And he's asking for something that she doesn't know if she can give.
Mhm.
And what coincides with him asking for it is the incongruency in thoughts. So, like when you play somebody who's not mentally necessarily stable, I didn't want to play a crazy person. I wanted to play somebody who felt very real.
Right.
But I also thought it was important to explore how the thoughts become incongruent with reality. So, like and I don't want to give away the end of the movie, but what's happening at the end of the movie for him, he thinks is a good thing. Whereas for her and her husband, who's on his trying to rush home, because essentially the husband spends the whole movie rushing home from the cabin, trying to protect his wife, but he's doing it during the COVID times when you're not allowed to be out after a certain curfew.
Mhm.
And so at the end of the movie, my character Brooklyn thinks he's doing something that's good for everyone, but it's an uneven thinking. It's not logical. It's really dark and traumatic. Um, and and for me, it was essentially like there was a lot of pieces of the movie that were sort of like rumination or meditations on loss and what it means, and forgiveness and other things that I think are interesting topics. Um, and I thought it would be an interesting thing to explore the idea of mental illness in a way that feels more real than crazy, because I don't think that's really helpful. For being
Right,
honest.
exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And how long did it take to actually put the whole thing together to where you were comfortable enough to get it out and release it?
Well, see, then it gets tricky. So we had it shot by the end of July COVID year. What was that? Was that 2020 COVID year? Anyway, something like that.
Feels like they all were, right?
I mean, it might have been earlier than that. But so, or no, maybe it was earlier than that. But so to get it, we got it shot, but then the world opened up again and everybody started making movies again. So our post took about like our editor had to take a 3 month break at one point because he got a job editing a Duplass Brothers TV show, 2 episodes of that. So obviously he was doing a small movie with us, and I said, "You go get your paycheck, buddy. Go ahead and just tell me when you can come back." A couple months later, he came back. We finished that, and then when we got into post sound, that took a long time because he was juggling 8,000 things
Mm,
that were paying him a lot of money. And then there was our movie, which was, sort of agreed upon thing before. before the world opened up again. So then when people found themselves busier, they had a harder time showing up for the jobs that weren't paying well, and then going home and talking to their families and being like, oh, I haven't been here because, but that's something that happens with these independent films is the one thing you always have on your side is patience and time if you allow it. And when you don't have a big bag of money to hand everybody, you have to have it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That
Exactly.
was part of that movie for us.
Yeah. Congratulations on it too. And I know, so you just wrapped filming The Order, and that had a lot of A-listers in it as well, Jude Law and others. Tell us about that one. Congratulations on that too. You're on fire, Bradley.
I'm just doing the work.
He's striking.
Just doing the work. That one is just audition, got a job, and actually ended up going and working with a group of guys that I just got along with. I can't even begin to say how well I got along with these guys. So there's Nicholas, Sebastian, George, myself, Philip. We're kind of a group within the group, and so we did a lot of things together. We ate dinners together. We went fly fishing together. We were in Calgary, Alberta. It was a really, really good time. And the director, Justin, I guess the best way for me to put it, he's a special director. And the reason I say that is that he really knows how to talk to actors, and I love the way he operates. He's kind of like, he's an Australian guy, so it might be part of it, but it's just like, there's just no bullshit. You just look you in the face and he's like, would you toughen up and be a man? God, do it. Go try again. And I was like, for me, that's fine. Some people would hate that or be offended by it. I was like, yes, that's right. Let's do it. The point being is that it was a special experience. I've been doing I've been doing this for a long time. I've done, 100 and something projects, 25 years. And this particular one will be one that'll stick with me just because of the group of guys, and we all got along so great. And Nicholas is a very big name in our business, and you wouldn't know it. And that's almost unheard of to be of his status and to be so incredible. Yeah.
I was mentioning some of the other projects too, which is really incredible. You were also in the thriller Paramount Pictures Crawl Space too, huh? Which is a top 10 film worldwide on Netflix in the international slate, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, that was a fun one, actually. That one has a really good story. My wife and I, post-COVID, I had a 1981 Volkswagen van that I bought in my 20s, an old camper van with the pop top. And I had sold it to my cousin because I burned up the engine. My cousin painted it, redid it. And then when my cousin started having his family, his wife didn't want the van anymore. And so he sold it to my cousin or to my uncle, who owned a Christmas tree farm in Oregon. And so during COVID, I knew that van was sitting in my uncle's garage in Salem, Oregon. And it's a long story, but my wife and I were both, the world had opened up. We were up in Vancouver. She was doing a movie, and then she was going to have 2 days off and do another movie. And I was supposed to go do a movie. And so we started looking at buying a new van, a newer one, 90 something. Anyway, long story short, she ended up getting COVID on a movie that brought that home. And then we were all locked in the house together. So we had to back out of the other two movies, which was no good. And so the money that was going to pay for the new van was those two movies. So I ended up calling up my uncle and saying, can I buy back my van? And he goes, I knew this call would come someday.
He was waiting. It's in the garage.
Exactly. So he calls my cousin. My cousin says, yes, as long as it stays in the family, absolutely. So we get the van, we get in the van, and we just start a road trip. First time we start the road trip, my wife gets leading a Hallmark movie. We go back to Vancouver. Road trip, and then when we're in Vancouver and she's filming that, we're living in a hotel and I audition for Crawl Space. Great. Think nothing of it. We get back in the van. She wraps the movie. We go back and we're going on a road trip. We're going to go for maybe 2 months. Who knows? We're just going to drive. Mm-hmm. We made it from Vancouver to South Lake Tahoe, and my phone rings. You have a call back for Crawl Space. I was like, I didn't even remember what it was. I was like, what? They're like, they need you to do it on Zoom or in person in Vancouver tomorrow. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be in Vancouver. Zoom. I'm like, I'm in a campground in South Lake Tahoe. I have no idea. So I went to the lodge at the campground. I said, you guys have internet? And they're like, we do. I go, can I rent one of your rooms for an hour? And I told them the story of what I was doing. And they were like, no, you can't rent a room for an hour. We'll give you one. Sure enough, they give me a room. I go in there and I do my callback in like the room of a lodge where there's internet. The first time we started the audition, I got 2 lines in and the feed dropped.
Mhm.
I went back into the wait. I did it anyway. It's a great story. So I do the scene. They give me notes, director, do it again, do it again. Okay, next one, do it again, do it again. Third scene, my character's in the scene. He's supposed to take a long pull off of this bottle of whiskey in the scene. And I had told my wife to empty the whiskey out of the bottle for the audition, and she forgot. So I'm in the middle of the scene, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And I came off that thing breathing fire, and I was like, oh God, if they ask me to do this thing twice, I'm going to fall over.
Yeah.
Sure enough, they one take, they're like, that was great. You don't have to do it again. So, but it was also for the lead in for a Paramount movie. And so I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was because those are usually name parts, you know?
So that was your Lucille Ball moment, Vitamita Vegemin.
That's right. Yeah.
It's so tasty too.
So subsequently, I ended up getting the job the next day, which I found fascinating. And
See?
it was an interesting time in our lives. And then I ended up back up there, and then I ended up back in LA doing an episode of Animal Kingdom. And that particular part was it was really fun and really challenging. And it was a really good time to show up on set and start working the muscles. And
Yeah.
the reception was great. People thought I was nuts, but they had a great time. Yeah.
Your other film and TV success recently includes roles in Searchlight Pictures magazine Dreams, Lifetime's How She Caught a Killer, Paramount Pictures Mercy, Disquiet, Dangerous Game, and the release of Vindicta, all on Paramount Plus and or Showtime. I mean, you are omnipresent.
Yeah, I've been busy. It's been good, knocking on wood all the time.
Right, exactly. Have some of the projects also been already underway, and then when the strike happened, they were paused, and now they're being released? Was there any of that action as well?
Some things get delayed. It's hard for me to know about all the logistics there. But I mean, I was working on a movie called The Greatest Ever. We were 2 days into filming and it got shut down. And for 2 days, we weren't sure if we were going to get to finish the movie. And at the end of the second day, they let us go back to work, thank goodness, because it was a true independent film. It was not what the strike was about. So we were able to go and finish that, that was an interesting situation to be in. All of a sudden, just everything stops. In terms of the release of films, How She Caught the Killer was I think pushed back maybe 4 or 6 weeks for its release. And Magazine Dreams played at Sundance last year. That one is being pushed back for other reasons. So there's not necessarily anything that's delayed specifically because of the strikes. Although I do think it'll be interesting to see the next 6 months is going to be different because we haven't been creating a lot of content.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting time. It really is. I want to make mention too, which I think is such a great name, Strike, and we've got the website of Strike Force Films. Tell us about that. That's again is your baby, and as we talked a lot about the acting part, but the writer and director and you as well, and filmmaker. When did you decide to create that?
I started that years ago. I think I don't even know what year it was. I made my first feature film when I lived in New York.
Because you lived in Manhattan for a number of years, you said, right?
Yeah, we lived in East Village for 3.5 years, my wife and I. We made a movie called Land of Smiles, which I'm not sure if it's out anywhere right now, actually. That was the first feature that we made. We shot in New York for a week, and then we shot in Thailand for 3 weeks. True guerrilla filmmaking. It was an amazing experience. It was really wild and just so fun. We had the crew and the actors and the director. We all lived the story while we were filming it. We basically lived it in order. It was amazing. So I developed the production company for short films I did before that, but then I did that. Strike Force Films is now kind of under the umbrella of Everly Entertainment. Everly Entertainment is, my mom's name was Beverly, and it's a spin on her name. When she passed away, we developed this idea of like Everly Entertainment will be the parent company, and then we'll have other subdivisions under it. And Strike Force Films will be sort of the horror / lower budget thriller section of what we do, and Sheltering Season will be sort of underneath the Everly name, being more of a dramatic thriller, more of a serious movie. And Strike Force Films was really just kind of, as you can see when you look at the website, it's a splash of paint. It was just kind of like a my creative outlet of, I just wanted to create stuff, as I felt like I was taking paint and throwing it on a wall, not necessarily knowing how I was going to land, not necessarily knowing 1,000% what I was doing, but knowing that I needed to take a shot. I need to put some paint on the canvas and see where it landed. I think the most dangerous part is waiting until you think you've got it figured out and then never doing it, or realizing that part of figuring it out is doing it.
Right.
And failing. And, the best days I have on, in my acting life are the days when I do fail, not necessarily in front of a camera, but when I fail on a stage or in a class, because that's when I'm growing.
Yeah, right.
And the movies I've released, the best things that I get from them are growth and education to help me with the next one.
That's right. Yeah.
And
got the new year coming. What are some of the cool things that you are excited about for next year?
A couple of things, actually. I've signed on to direct a movie that I didn't write. We just made an offer to our quote unquote name actor. We'll see in the next couple of days how that goes. That'll be fun. I get to direct that movie in February in Louisiana. I'm currently putting together a pitch for another producer that gave me a true crime story he wanted to turn into a film, and so I've been developing that for him, and hopefully I'll get the green light on that. And then I was sent a book from a producer I know in Halifax, and I read the book, and it's a very fascinating story, and they're waiting to see if they get the money, which they'll know, I think, by the end of December, if they'll get the money to move into development on, and then I'll be adapting that book into a screenplay. So it's a bit of I have my own projects still going on,
right?
And various levels of, some with names attached, some with there's some with they're just a script in a producer's hands. I sold a movie called Dragon Run that's a company in Europe bought. I don't know what they're doing with it. There's so many different things that at any time could grab my attention. This movie called The Confession that I'm very excited about, and we're going to shoot in London. And now we were offering you a name, and now we've come back. If that movie all of a sudden came together, I would be happily in London in February. So
absolutely. What about comedy? Have you dipped into comedy at all?
It's so funny because my mother would have told you
the way you said
she
that.
thinks I was meant to do.
Yeah. I like the way you said it's so funny when I asked about comedy.
Well, see, there you go. I've written 3 feature films that are comedies, and so when you're writing something, I as a writer take on the characters.
Yeah, sure.
When I'm writing a comedy, I'm laughing and having the best time, just making and one of the issues with comedy, which is just a weird thing, but I found this out really quickly. Comedy is one of the only genres that's very difficult to sell internationally.
Because everybody's sense of humor is so different. Yeah. What's funny here is not funny in Paris or Tokyo or Melbourne. Yeah.
Yes. And the only comedies that sell worldwide have, The Rock or Kevin Hart in them. Because the actor carries to the other markets. So really, outside of that, when you write a comedy, you're writing it for America, for North America, or the English speaking world. I think it's very it's not my favorite thing, but when I started getting into sort of creating content, I was shunned away from it because I would pitch stuff to people and they'd be like, no comedy. And I was like, why? They're like, because we can't sell it. Which is why I found a home in the thriller genre that I actually really love. I love making thrillers. In my future, would there be a comedy? Probably. I really enjoy doing it. It's so fun. And just the way I feel when I'm doing it is so light and joyful. Whereas when you dig into some of these other ones, you're like, wow, I'm living in a place that is not healthy. You know, walking around carrying the demons of like 5 dark characters with me every day.
Yeah.
This true
Yeah.
crime thing is even weirder. I'm writing a true crime story about a guy that's going to get out of prison in 4 years. And I was like, this is dark on top of the fact that do I want to be connected to this person? Because you will be. Because you're writing their real, it's very interesting. So yeah, there's a lot that I'm still unpacking about that. But comedy would definitely be something that my mom, sitting up there is going, just do one. Just do one for me.
Get one in there. You've had the opportunity to collaborate with a lot of great people too, notable names like Liam Neeson and John Voight and others. That's kind of cool too, huh? Along the way.
Oh yeah. I mean, from the 2 gentlemen you just named, I end up learning a lot just watching the way they operate. I think I've had the rather fortunate experience of working with some really good actors and some good people. I also it's tricky though because I tend to see the good in almost anyone.
Me
So
too.
Yeah. So sometimes you people are like that guy's so awful, and I'm like, yeah, well, or he's this.
He's having an off day today or something.
Yeah, or you could view it from this angle and it'd be more interesting. Make them more palatable as a human, at least. I've befriended and become friends with quite a few of the actors, the name actors that I've worked with, and I think part of it is that I don't know why, but I don't really stand there and look at them as any different than the rest of us. We're all human. We're all doing the same things. We're all in the, we're all trying to figure it out at all times. And just because you have doesn't mean you figured anything out. Because I know you go home and struggle with things too.
Sure.
So when I'm standing and dealing with actors, it's usually I'm talking or dealing with a peer. And if anybody chooses to not deal with me as a peer, then we just don't have much of a communication.
Right.
I just do my job and they do their job. But I'm definitely not willing to sort of be subservient to anybody because no matter who it is, I just don't believe it would be honest or authentic. Because it's
true.
I don't really look at, nor do I, as Bradley, look at younger actors and look down on them.
Right.
I try and help them, and I kind of look at them and go, I remember what it's like to be where you are. What do you need from me to help you make this work? Because ultimately, we're all standing here and we all want to go home. So what do you need to make this work? Whereas, a lot of the people you just named, same thing. Yeah. They want to do the job. That's what they're there to do.
Exactly. I want to make mention because that's a great quick segue to the fact and just shows the spirit of the kind of guy that you are. In addition to the thriving career that you have, you're actively involved in a lot of nonprofit initiatives too, which I think is a really cool thing. I've always tried to do that in many different ways too, with your busyness of the career. Sometimes, it gets crazy to fit it in, but you always find a way to do it if it's things you really care about. You've participated in the Big Brother and Little Brother program and the AIDS Life Cycle bike ride in San Francisco to LA and other things. Giving back is really important, isn't it, Bradley?
Yeah. And I think, I don't have to necessarily think of it in terms of giving back as much as just lending my energy to something that can use it. As I've said, I've got a surplus of it. And I did, before I did the AIDS Life Cycle ride, I did a play in which I played, it was called AIDS, the play. It was a 1-act play, actually. And my character was in the hospital and my partner in the play. We went to a hospice in Los Angeles and sat and talked with other people who were in a hospice with AIDS. And it was quite an experience. And so then I did that. I did all the prep for the play. I did the play and it stuck with me. And I was like, this is a group of people I'd like to share some of my energy with. And I found out this thing about the AIDS Life Cycle ride, and I was like, I'm an active guy. I'd love it. I called my best buddy, and I said, let's do this bike ride. We didn't even have bikes. We went and bought bikes, and we were like, okay, how do we train?
They would have the bike.
I was like, I don't know. Let's figure it out. Let's train.
Let's put it together.
Yeah, we'd ride a bike from all the way down Mulholland to the PCH and then up to PCH. I mean, long bike rides.
And that's not necessarily flat land either.
No, there's cars everywhere. It's just the dumbest idea on planet Earth. But we had a blast doing it. And then we did the actual bike ride, it was 6 days. And I rode a bike 650 miles, San Francisco. You start in the city and you end up in Los Angeles. The people you spend time with along the way. And I remember that was one of the only times in my life when I drove into West Hollywood on my bike, you could not contain the emotion just dumps, because there's all these people there. And also on the bike ride, there's about 1,200, I think. There's 1,200 riders when I did it, and I think 750 of them are HIV positive. And it meant a lot more to them, I'll tell you that.
Sure, yeah.
And then you pull into and their family and their friends are there, and all of the community there in West Hollywood. It's special. It's just special. And you're like, for me, I don't have the disease. It was just it was a chance to sort of lend my energy and my ability to help to a group of people that I thought needed it. And man, it was a very special thing. And then, the Big Brother, Little Brother program, something I always wanted to do because my best friend was a little brother growing up.
Yeah.
And I found that to be such a fun thing. My little brother was actually, so you take these tests and they match you with somebody who's you're going to be like-minded with. And I was a really active guy. I end up in the Valley in LA, and my little brother, I meet him and him and his mom. They're lovely. He's this young kid. It's him and his sister and his mom. And his mom looks at me and she goes, I found out his dad had gotten 3 strikes. And at the age of 30, I think he was in jail for the rest of his life. Nothing violent, just bad decisions. And so she said, my son's only around women. So I think, he operates in a certain way. He's a little more effeminate than most little boys. And I was like, okay. And I met him and we went and shot hoops together and played video games together. And one of the things I realized about this little boy is I said, no, this little boy is going to be who he's going to be. And it's not that he's effeminate because he has a mom and because he has a sister. I said, I think that's who he is. And so sure enough, we grow up and he actually, I don't know exactly what stage he's definitely fluid in some manner and transitioning in some way. And he's just a lovely guy. And it's so funny because it's just who he always was. Let him be who he wants to be. It's fantastic. Nothing to do with his dad being gone. He was going to be that guy anyway.
Right, exactly.
And I found it all to be so sweet that was who I got paired with. I took a test, he took a test, and I'm like, maybe there's a lot about Bradley. We need to unpack some of this.
When Bradley returns to the Jim Masters Show Live series, he's going to share some more about his background behind the scenes. You've only seen one side of Bradley. You've seen this version of Bradley here.
Yeah, that's not true. That's not the real guy. Oh, yeah. I love it.
That is funny. Hey, I wanted to show you too. We have a lot of people watching, and welcome everybody who's commenting in the lovely whole chat room. We appreciate that. May Cromwell, Bradley, I've always thought you are more attractive. You are a more attractive Daniel Craig. I'm not at all biased. A very talented fella. Hey, May, welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live series. And Christy Bates, one of my first buddies in LA. So happy to watch this. Proud of you, Bradley. You haven't changed a bit.
It's true, Christy. I haven't. And that was Auntie May, by the way. These are all inside hitters for me.
Really? See, now they're lovities here on the Jim Masters Show. I said during the pandemic that this show has it's as you can see, it's conversational. It's like a true talk show. It's not just interview. It's paying homage to the Johnny Carsons, the Dick Cavetts, some of the legendary talk show hosts, but with a modern vibe, modern twist. We have just free-flowing, non-scripted conversations. It's much more connected. It's warmer. It's fun. It's free-flowing. And out of that, when you get these comments like this, I had said during the pandemic that the show has a lot of light, love, and levity. And I said that at a time, when we could really use more of that in the crazy time of pandemic. And I whisper because YouTube goes nuts when you say it. And so somehow I said, the show has a lot of light, love, levity. And I said it too fast one day. And I said light, levity. And somehow I said levity. I'm like, what's that? And it was combining love and levity together, and it just came out, popped out of the word, out of my mouth. And then the audience our faithful viewers said, God, we love that word. And you're now Mr. Lovity. This is Lovity Hall. We're your Lovity squad, and the guests are part of
Oh
the
yeah, lovely.
Lovity family, right? And Maureen in Arizona had this made. I mean, it's like, and just because of a slip of the tongue, which was a good one, I guess, not bad at all. Yeah. So the viewers, they call themselves the Lovities, and they're all commenting. They've all welcomed you, and they've been loving this conversation as well. Christy says, great memories for sure. Yeah, this is really. Jen Barry's in Pennsylvania says, what's your Zen place? Now, I grew up we're by the ocean here. We're a couple of blocks from the ocean, East Coast, and have always been near the ocean. The ocean is a big thing for me. Swimming, surfing, boogie boarding, sailing, just the rhythm, the tide, feeling the power of the ocean. It's bigger than me. But she always likes to ask when she can get it in there, mountains or ocean? She's in the mountains of Allentown, Pennsylvania. So she loves the mountains. I'm on the coast. I love the ocean. What's your go-to, or do you love it all?
I was gonna say, I'm Jen. I'm not gonna be able to give you one. I'm gonna give you both, because there's one thing about being. We're big skiers and snowboarders in my family, and there's something about being in a cabin or even just being outside in the snow when it's really quiet and the snow's falling. This would be my definition of peace, like peace and calm. That silence that comes with the snow. But I'm 100% with you about the ocean, Jim. I live 3 blocks from the ocean here. When I'm in Vancouver, I'm like 3 blocks from the ocean there. I'm a water person. I can't live away from water. One of the things about me, and I remember this when I lived in Venice Beach the first time, which was 15, no, even longer, like maybe even like 17 years ago. No matter what's going on in your life, if you stand on the beach, stand at the edge of the sand, and look out at the ocean, you will quickly find perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, it's whatever your thing is that feels like it's too much, it's not. Because if you stand there and look at that ocean, you realize real quick how big the world is and how your stuff is just stuff.
That's what I like about it too. And I said to people during the craziness of, the pandemic and all, when it seemed like the rug was being pulled out from underneath you and nothing was, just everything was upside down. Get out into nature, go to the ocean, go up in the mountains, get yourself around nature, and you'll find that there's a rhythm, there's a tide. None of those things knew anything about, a pandemic. They're just doing what they're doing. The animals are running around scurrying for food, and the ocean tides coming in and out, and that's still happening morning, noon, and night. It's happened, thousands of years before us, and it'll happen after us, and that will give you a sense of, maybe the entire thing isn't being flipped upside down. There are still some things that are in our existence that cost nothing, that are there and can be very stabilizing, grounding, supportive. There's nothing like when you're barefoot on the beach.
I think it's funny is everybody's doing the cold water thing now.
Yes. Have you done that?
I could just go in about 2 months. If I walk down to the Pacific Ocean and throw my body into it, that is it. It's freezing. And in Vancouver, forget about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you guys, Seattle and all up through there, the water is not exactly Southern California or Florida, right? Exactly.
You know what's so funny about we would do the polar bear swim in Vancouver. Whenever we're up there for New Year's, we'll still do it.
Oh yeah.
Whoa! Like I don't care what you got going on. You want to clear your head. Jump in that water and first.
That's colder than a cold shower.
Actually, the water by you would be that cold too, in about January 1st.
Oh yeah. You get into the winter time. Yes, that's why for Christmas we're going for a couple of weeks to Florida to see the family down there.
That's right.
That's it. Who have moved from up north to there. Why do you love this so much? Obviously, you're passionate about it, and like I said, you've got your hands in so many different areas, from acting, but also behind the scenes, putting it all together, writing, directing, and inspiring and collaborating with others, giving them opportunities too as a director, writer, and filmmaker. what are some of the things that still carry you through, some of those blessings in your own life, Brad?
Well, I mean, I think you have the ability to entertain people, obviously, but you also have the ability to make people think. Um, the world's an interesting place right now, and a lot of people have very strong views in whatever direction those views might be in. And I think through the sort of the medium of TV and film, depending on what sort of stuff you're doing, you have the ability to put conversations out there that will not change people's minds, but will at least allow them to have a conversation and to think about things. Um, Closed-mindedness is a dangerous thing, and I think that if you move into something in the world of film or TV storytelling in any way, shape, or form, you really can't be that closed-minded to be able to do it in a judicious way, because I think you'll run into, it's like I've written a couple of things about school shootings, and not because I am a pro or anti-gun person. I actually really enjoy going to a shooting range. I think it's fun. My conversation is more about we should talk about it. I have an 8-year-old son. I'm not interested in school being a dangerous place. So that's more of my motivation is in that. Like I started out writing movies for entertainment to make money. I did that, and I said that's not enough. And then I said, what are the social issues I want to talk about? All right, let's fuse some of those into these stories. And that's when I really started to grab a hold of it, and kind of this has got me now. The ability to have a conversation with people, or to spark a conversation about something, and to go, well, what do you think about this? Um, can we talk about it, or are we going to do the thing where we're all just too angry and we want to just not, which I think is even more dangerous. So when you create something, it could be as simple as sheltering season, and to shed a little bit of light on people that do battle with things, sort of with their stability mentally, and to go, they're not all crazy. These are people that are dealing with real things. They're real human being in there that are dealing with real things. So maybe a little bit more of a breadth of understanding would be nice for all of us.
Some empathy, right? Yeah, compassion for one another's plight, and I'm always about, let's bring everybody to the table, and we might not get everything we want, but at least if we all get a slice of the pie, it makes things better. And I think that's the way you should sort of think about it. And it seems like we're kindred spirits on a lot of that way of thinking. And in these roles that we have in these crazy, demanding, but creative and fantastic industries, we have the opportunity to, lift people up and get them to think and inspire them, get them to laugh, and reach them in ways that sometimes goes beyond what we even thought we were doing, because it's automatic pilot for us. I'm sure there's times where people will come up to you and say, not just that I love you in that role, but there was something about the way you played that character or that piece that you wrote and directed that really resonated with them, and they related in a way that was deep to them and inspired them, and maybe even got them to think about their own life in a different way and go down a different road, which is some of the gravy to doing this kind of work, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And those conversations do happen, and it's they're always the best conversations because it feels great. But again, for me, it just comes back to keeping myself in a place where I'm willing to be open to talk about things, and where I'm interested in seeing both sides of a conversation, because I definitely have my own views and beliefs, but I also don't know that they're right. And I think it's dangerous when that's one of the things that I learned about acting, specifically when I was learning this craft. It's not right or wrong. And there's this, when you're young, there's this idea of like, I just want to get it right. There isn't
Yeah.
right or wrong.
Right.
But there is the exploration to find your way towards a product that's authentic and that's honest.
Right.
And if everybody accepts that as like, oh, that's amazing, then you have no control over that. Like Sheltering Season, I didn't make the movie to win a bunch of awards. It's done great. But at the same time, I was just trying to find an authentic and honest way to play this man, and it resonated with people. Great. Okay, that's great. There's also been times when it hasn't been that way. and that's fine too. But I think it's important to, at all times, keep the humility as part of your bag of tricks. Because the minute you lose that, because you can be very confident and very humble, but some people get confused and they think, nah, my confidence has to overtake any sort of humility. I don't need anybody else, or I've got it figured out. I'm right.
That turns into cocky. Yeah.
Well, the magic for me comes in listening to other people go, what about this? And me going, whoa, what? I didn't think about that. I just had a phone call, a Zoom call right before this with the producers and the composer of this movie that I made. And the composer had some ideas that made us all go, what? That's crazy idea. Whoa, do that. I want to see what that looks like. Whereas if I went into the meeting telling him exactly how it was going to be because I figured it out the right way, I might not get to stumble into his magic. Which ultimately he'll make the film better, and then I'm the director. I'll take credit.
You heard it here first. That's it, right? That is funny.
It's actually true, though. I think it's hilarious. I say it to my actors all the time. I'm like, if you're brilliant, don't worry. Everybody's going to give you a pat on the back, but I'm going to take the credit for it.
This was awesome, my friend. This really was, as I say, we don't do interviews, we do conversations, and this was really fantastic. Getting a chance to learn more about you and how you approach the craft and how you got started, but also current projects, past, future. And so when people see you, Bradley, and past productions, when they check out Tubi and other places, Paramount Plus and all the rest, they get a good feel of who you are as not just the actor or the writer or director, but as the person that's real and authentic. And I think it's really cool. And you've shared, essence of your story and your family and places you've had to travel and move to and live. And I think it's really cool. And I really hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you, Bradley.
Well, it's been a pleasure. And thank you for having me. It's nice because, as you said, it feels like I'm just talking with a friend.
That's what it is. Yeah. New friend made for sure. Absolutely. And we will definitely, as I always say, keep the porch light on for you. You're welcome back anytime, my friend. And spread the word about our show. If you would like to come back, you're welcome. Other folks you think would like to hop on as guests, they're all welcome. You know how it is. It takes a village for sure. And this will be all archived on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. And of course, you're on all the socials as well. And congratulations with everything. I know it's, you got a lot of fires in the iron there, or irons in the fire. You got both.
It feels like I got both.
You got both going. And I know how that is. And sometimes it's a little difficult to manage and juggle, but you find a way to do it because you love it. And that's the cool thing. So a couple of websites, of course, you can check out more of his incredible work. And he's a behind the scenes as well as on camera guy. And a pleasure to chat with you, my friend. Really, truly. Thanks for stopping by the Jim Masters Show live series. I enjoyed it. And all our viewers commenting have as well. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll see you again soon. Oh, and Leslie says, such a great guy with so much positive energy. Absolutely. And that's what we're about here at JMS, Leslie, and everybody watching. Appreciate it. You be well, okay? You take care. And thanks for stopping by. Kathleen, New York City. Thanks for being here. Bradley, great conversation. Good luck with all you do. Good stuff. All right. You going to go make a sandwich now?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go put up some Christmas stuff before my kids.
The Christmas. That's right. Best of the holidays to you, my friend. Let's stay in touch. You're welcome back anytime. Okay.
All right. Much appreciated, buddy.
All right. You be well. Thanks, Bradley.
Cool. All right.
Cheers. Incredible conversation here on JMS with Bradley Stryker. Yeah. You got a chance to learn a little bit more about him in our exclusive live uncut interview. That's right. It's uncut. It's live. It's free flowing. Best kind. That way there, you get a real sense of everything that's going on here. And we thoroughly enjoyed this as well. And again, if you want to find out about sheltering place or shelter in place, we did that the last couple of years. Sheltering season. Again, it's one of the latest of his projects, and it's really fantastic. I congratulate him on all this great material. He's been doing it. 25 years, he mentioned. That went by in a New York minute, huh? There's the websites to check out some of the extraordinary work. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode of our series. You know how it works here. If you did, give us a like. Yeah, there's a thumbs up icon, little thumbs up. Make sure you do the one that goes up. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment, drop a comment in the comment section on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, underneath this episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. Doesn't cost anything, helps us grow. And be sure and click that notification bell icon. There's a little bell icon next to the word subscribe. When you do that, you'll get alerts from us about all these great episodes, all these fabulous guests coming in from Hollywood and Broadway, television, film, music, stage, sports, comedy, inspiration, culinary arts, you name it, from all around the world, which is cool. Thanks to the lovelies watching and commenting. And if you're watching this live, we appreciate you. If you're watching this later in the archives, thanks for being here as well. And if this was your first time checking out the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series, thanks for being here. We appreciate you being here as well. It really means a lot. And don't forget to check out all the other episodes. We have over 1,035 episodes and counting in just 3.5 years. A lot of binge watching with some of your favorite stars and great conversations right here on our series. And Leslie, thank you for your comment as well. Thanks, Jim. Great interviews. Thank you, Leslie, watching in Canada. Well, she is a lovely as well. And David says, this was awesome. Thank you very much. Bradley's the man. Cool. Great to have you here, David. Maureen in Arizona. Fabulous conversation. Bradley, thanks, Jim. As always, you knocked this one out of the park. I appreciate that. Maybe when I used to play right field in baseball and Little League, I apply some of that here. Cool stuff. You guys are great. Kathleen in New York City. Thanks, Jim, for another terrific show. Great weekend. Yeah, I actually have a television shoot tomorrow morning, really early at 7 a.m. with a guest that flew in from Atlanta, I believe, came up north from Atlanta. So we're going to be in the TV studio tomorrow. Busy, busy day. Crazy busy time. Best of the holidays, everybody. Merry, happy to you and yours, of course, as well. We appreciate all of you being here, and we've got some holiday shows coming up for you as well. Thanks for all this lovely, great comments coming in here. You guys are the absolute best. Jen in, so he gave you 50-50 there, Jen in Allentown, Pennsylvania. A little bit mountains, a little bit ocean. So there you go. And it's all about variety in life, right, gang? We love having you here. I'm your host, Jim Masters. Thank you for your time this time. Till next time, come see us again here at Lovely Hall and the Jim Masters Show Live. We always have a good time with all of you. Some poignant moments, great conversations, lots of laughs. And we learn something, and we're all doing it together. And that's what it's all about. I will see you on the next one. I'm starving. It is dinner time here on the East Coast around 6 p.m. So it's time for dinner. We're going to eat, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Jim Masters Show Live. Thanks for being with us. It means the world when you are here. Don't keep it a secret. Get on top of Mount Everest with a bullhorn. Say, I love the Jim Masters Show, and I'm a lovity. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again soon. Cheers.